As you've probably heard by now, 31-year-old conservative commentator and activist Charlie Kirk was shot at an event he was hosting at Utah Valley University. The shooter, who authorities are still investigating, reportedly fired a single shot from the top of a building around 180 meters away. Kirk was struck in the neck. He was pronounced dead shortly after, being transported to a nearby hospital. Mr. Kirk was the co-founder and CEO of TurningPoint USA, an American non-profit organisation that advocates for conservative politics on education campuses. Now, I haven't had much to do with Charlie Kirk, although I have seen a few of his videos that popped up from time to time in my feed. From what I understand, he was just a family man who engaged in political debate in the public square. Surely that's something we should celebrate, even if we disagreed with his views. He spoke eloquently, he spoke passionately, he clearly was willing to listen to people, but he also wasn't scared of disagreeing with you. He spoke his mind and made his views clear. That said, he certainly wasn't a violent man. He certainly didn't call for violence. But unfortunately, somebody who didn't like what he had to say decided to shoot him dead. Look, I can't say that I agreed with everything he had to say, or vice versa. I've only watched a small handful of his videos. But one thing we should all surely agree on, in a free society, he should have a right to express those views freely. It doesn't matter if we agree with him or not, and I don't care if he was a progressive activist, he should still have the right to express his opinion. As you know, I express my opinions relatively freely on this channel, and I encourage open debate. If you disagree with me, great. Leave a comment, make a video, speak openly about your disagreement with me. I don't mind. We should be allowed to express our views and debate those views with one another. If I don't like your views, who cares? We're living in a free country. The worst that can happen by somebody expressing their views openly is that somebody gets offended. That's a pretty good trade-off, I think. But of course, when people think that being offended is something worthy of physical violence, well, that's something I cannot agree with, and I hope you wouldn't agree with either, no matter how offensive the views are. Like me, Mr. Kirk had a wife and 2 young children. This is at least partly the reason I try to keep anonymous online. Now, I'm not suggesting that every political commentator should try to keep anonymous. Of course not. I envy those who can speak publicly. However, in the current climate that we live in, speaking openly on controversial topics has its risks. All it takes is one nutjob who disagrees with you in Aldi, and somebody's entire life is over. Of course, I also don't think his assassination served any purpose. It's not going to stop people from talking. Actually, perhaps it will have the opposite effect. It's likely the death of Charlie Kirk will result in 10 more Charlie Kirks popping up. The shooter hasn't achieved anything, except chaos. Perhaps that's what they wanted. Political leaders from both sides of the aisle have publicly condemned the shooting. This is one of those moments where, for once, you can see a tiny flicker of unity. It turns out that when someone is gunned down for their opinions, most people, even political opponents, can still manage to find common ground in condemning it. US President Donald Trump said, "I'm filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. It's long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible." Former President Joe Biden tweeted, "There is no place in our country for this kind of violence. It must end now. Jill and I are praying for Charlie Kirk's family and loved ones." Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, tweeted, "My thoughts this evening are with the loved ones of Charlie Kirk. It is heartbreaking that a young family has been robbed of a father and a husband. We must all be free to debate openly and freely without fear. There can be no justification for political violence." Former President Barack Obama tweeted, We don't yet know what motivated the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk, but this kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy. Michelle and I will be praying for Charlie's family tonight, especially his wife Erica and their 2 young children. Australia's ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd, released a statement. The death of Charlie Kirk today is deeply distressing. There is no space for political violence in any democracy. My thoughts and those of all Australians are with his family and loved ones. Of course, there are trolls or extremists or whatever you want to label them who are celebrating Mr. Kirk's death, and I'm certainly not going to publish any of their posts here. But one thing I'd just like to highlight is that by celebrating political violence, they're tacitly agreeing with violence against people for expressing an opinion, for using words. That's not good. That's not moral. We don't better our society by eliminating dissenting voices. What sort of society would that be? It would be one of fear and constant bloodshed. I hope this doesn't spiral out of control. I hope this highlights that political violence needs to be condemned. I hope we're not so lost that we can't see the line between speech and bloodshed, because that's a line that can't be uncrossed.